Okay, Rosie. So you're home from university for a little while. Let's just say from the outset you're not studying social work, are you? But you've got your first reflective assignment to write. So this was a group project, and I'm just going to ask you to think back over that group project as though that period of time, and I'm going to ask you what the weather was like along the journey, and we'll see what comes out of it, what you can use in your assignment. Okay. So if I said to you, tell me about the sunshine moment of the project, what does that mean for you?
For me, the sunshine moment would be it all clicking and coming together. So, probably in one of our early meetings where we all took responsibility for some research and we all seemed to be making progress.
Okay, so for you, the sunshine was that good moment, and that was like the warmer moment for you then. The good
Yes.
moment was that a beginning when you were taking responsibility. Okay, so what about if I said, when was the rainy times, or was there a rainy time even?
The rainy time would be more like when there were lots of things to do and they weren't getting done, especially towards the end where we found no one had written a conclusion and we didn't have very much time and no one was taking responsibility and there was no progress being made.
Okay, so for you, that felt like rain.
Mm.
But then I suppose what you can think about in terms of the rain is nothing grows without rain. So you could think about what you might be able to learn from that experience of coming towards the end and nobody had written a conclusion. I mean, do you think it had been clear from the beginning who was responsible for writing that conclusion, or do you think maybe you could have been clearer earlier
I
to
think,
avoid the rain?
yeah, there could have been clarity earlier to prevent the rain, but in the end, that's what we had to deal with.
Okay, okay. So if I said to you then, was there any fog? Was there a foggy stage at all during this process, the whole group project
Mm.
process?
The fog for me would have been when people weren't seeing things I thought were there. So, being the only woman in the group, some discussions I felt like I came into with a different perspective, which other people didn't necessarily understand.
Okay, so did the fog clear, do you think, for, I mean, you're thinking about, was that fog for you then, or was that fog for other
Mm.
people, or
From my perspective, they were in the fog and I was seeing clearly, but reflecting on it, I might have been seeing things and exaggerating them when maybe they weren't that important.
okay. So maybe that helps you to think about things from the other people's perspective as well, if you think about the fog and where the fog was and when the fog lifted and those kinds of things. Okay, so if I said to you, what about the wind? Was there any wind going on? What might wind mean for you, I
Mm.
suppose, is a starting point.
Wind for me means disruption. Obviously, it blows down lots of things and causes problems when we have windy days. And in terms of the group project, that would have been the coronavirus issue recently, where we've all started having to work remotely, which did impact on our communication in general.
Okay, okay. See, now that's quite interesting because you've seen wind as it blows things down, and that's probably because of the role that you're in. You see the wind blowing down cables and things, whereas to me, wind would be about what might blow you off course a bit or something. So it shows how the different weather types can mean different things to different people, even. So, what about then if I said, what about the ice? Was there any ice during this process for you?
I think there was, and I think that would have been when our time scale started to slip. And if people said they were going to do something and then didn't, and it slipped us over a little bit in our progress.
Okay, so slipping up there a little bit.
Mm.
And so, how did you stop that slipping? Or did you stop that
Um,
slipping?
it's very hard to stop that when it's on someone else's part, and I think for us it was more just checking in and trying to make sure we had a collective approach.
Okay, okay, that's good. So, what about the snow then? What would snow mean for you?
Snow. That can mean lots of things, but snowfall is quite disruptive again, like wind. You can't see very clearly. And I think for me, that would be at the very start of the group project where we didn't know what direction we went in. Just like it's hard to drive in the snow, I think it was hard for us to get going at the start.
Right, okay. So, how did you get yourselves going at the start then? How did you sort of drive through the snow?
I think we each had to go independently and come up with our own direction and then come together and decide which one we felt was the most appropriate.
Okay, so maybe that would also be that beginning, you each working independently, individually, and then coming together. That also reflects snow in a way, doesn't it? Because every snowflake is unique, isn't it? Like every
Mm.
snowflake's totally different, and that's one of the things about having to come together in a group. Sometimes is you've got different people coming together, and you need to achieve a common goal. So you could think about that maybe. Okay, so what about lightning? Was there any lightning? What might that mean for you, lightning?
I think lightning could mean like a eureka moment or a revelation. And that I think would have been towards the end of the time period where we started to put all our work together and realised we had formed a good report.
Okay, okay. So that was your kind of light bulb moment of
Mm.
it's actually worked. It's going. It's getting there. Okay. What about a storm? Because I suppose lightning is part of a storm, isn't it? You get thunder, you get other things in a storm. But was there a storm at all for you? Do you
I
think?
don't think there was for us, but I think there maybe could have been because we didn't have many disagreements as a group and there was no real conflict. But I think that was more because we were all afraid of stepping on each other's toes, and so we didn't say what we really wanted to say, which ultimately didn't benefit us as a team.
Okay. So maybe what you were trying to do was avoid a storm,
Mm.
but actually maybe a bit of a storm could have been useful for you.
Yes.
You know, because sometimes I think that's the thing, isn't it? You can feel a storm coming, you feel the pressure building when a storm's coming, but actually, when the storm happens, sometimes it clears things a little bit, doesn't it? So, you know, maybe it's worth looking at conflict isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes
Mm.
conflict's helpful. So you might want to think about that in your assignment piece, perhaps a little bit as well. Okay, what about hail?
Hail just reminds me of being hurt because being in the hail is so hurtful. And I think that in terms of our project, for me, that would be when you're working on your own and you're very concerned about hurting other people's grade or mark from your own work.
Right, okay. So that's interesting because you're thinking about how not the hail and the pain for you, but you're
Mm.
thinking about the pain for other people. So that's, you know, maybe something around. I think one of the things about reflective writing is seeing things from other people's perspectives, but also taking responsibility for yourself and what you're doing. So that's actually a really good point to start on to think that one through. Okay, so there's loads of other types of weather, obviously, but let's. I think there's quite a few things that have come out there. You've only, you know, you haven't got a huge number of words, have you, for this? So it'll give you a few starting points to think about your assignment. But let's try and end it with a rainbow. Let's try and, you know, you've got sun, you've got rain, then you get a rainbow, don't you? So what might a rainbow mean for you?
I think for our team, it was after we'd submitted it and we all thanked each other and we were all very glad it had come to the end of the assignment and it was like the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow.
Right. Okay. So you feel like you got something out of it at the end of the rainbow. And the thing about a rainbow as well is, well, you know, I'm rubbish at science, and so I don't know about the science of building a rainbow. But the thing about a rainbow is that it represents hope very often, doesn't it? And so you could think about maybe what you might hope for in the future, or maybe what you would hope to do differently. I think one of the key things that you want in a reflective piece is what might I change, what might I do differently, and that could be from the rainbow. So, you've spent your life hearing about social work theory from me. You're doing an engineering course, nothing to do with social work. But I do think the weather model can really just help you to reflect on anything, a period of time. The thing about the weather model for social work students is it's particularly good to look at back over a period of time, so maybe a group project or a placement rather than a single incident. But give it a try yourself.